Happy Christmas! 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 Happy Christmas!
Do you have anything besides cookies and milk? A new vice.
Hello! Happy Christmas. What's up? Merry Christmas. Almost Christmas. It's I, Buttress, here with a Christmas themed episode because you know what? We're keeping with the spirit of the times. I got that fire Christmas sound effects pack on deck. Shout outs to club member Falter Figure for hooking me up with that fire Christmas pack. We got bells. Woo! Woo! What else we got? We got some other shit. Woo!
Cookies and milk?
Anyway,
Something like.
let me stop. So welcome. I wanted to do a Christmas theme episode because why the fuck not? I'm a product of my environment, and in my environment, there is Christmas stuff going on. So you know what? Fuck it. I already did a Thanksgiving theme episode. Here's the Christmas episode. And I was like, what the fuck should I talk about? I wanted to talk about Babu Jeebus, also known as Baby Jeebus, also known as Baby Jesus. But knowing myself, I knew that would just turn into some like useless, not very Christmas spirited, fucking theological diatribe from myself. So then I was thinking, I was like, what the fuck is phenomenology? What's a good phenomenology theme for Christmas? And then I was thinking about one of my favorite Christmas stories, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I'm a big fan of Muppet Christmas Carol in particular. I wasn't allowed to watch spooky movies growing up. And, you know, for those of you who know me, I love spooky stuff. And I feel like Muppet Christmas Carol was like the one film I was allowed to see that had a lot of spooky stuff. Like the ghosts in that movie freak me out. They're very spooky, especially the ghost of Christmas Past. The fuck? That bitch is spooky. She spooked me out. And also, like, how did they animate her? I love it. Like, she must have been underwater. I was watching that not long ago, and I imagine the puppet was underwater because look at the motion and shit. I would love to see a making of the Muppet Christmas Carol if such a thing exists. Anyway, what's up? What's up, you people? Do we have any listeners from a country that doesn't celebrate Christmas? Because I want to know what kind of Christmas spirit you all are in. Anyway, I was thinking about Charles Dickens' work, A Christmas Carol, which was written in 1843. I believe Charles Dickens lived in London at the time, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the work. It's largely a critique of a lot of things, but, you know, his political, it's a very political work. I was thinking about A Christmas Carol and the ghosts, all the spooky ghosts, and I was thinking, how could, okay, I was thinking about the ghosts. I'm like, the ghost of Christmas Past seems to make sense at first presentation, but then I was thinking about the ghost of Christmas Present, and I was like, what the fuck? How could you be a ghost of the present? What the fuck is the ghost of Christmas Present? And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, wait a second. All of these fucking time ghosts how can you be a ghost of a time, you know? The ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas future? How the fuck are you a ghost? You're like this individual entity, but what are you really a ghost the way that we perceive ghosts to be? And it's interesting. I didn't visit the original text because I'm lazy and I don't give a fuck. I spent all my time getting these fire Christmas sounds.
Happy Christmas!
But I wonder in the original text if Charles Dickens makes a distinction between the first visitation, when he's visited by the ghost of his ex-business partner, something Marley. Was it Bob? Bob Marley? When Bob Marley's ghost visits him, that is clearly a ghost in the more traditional sense of the word, right? It's a personified being, this apparition that, you know, is somehow representative of this person that he knew in life that has since become deceased. But what are these other ghosts? I don't know if he makes a distinction in the literature, if he uses a different word. But I was thinking about this shit. These ghosts of these time periods. I was like, dude, the ghosts. Wait, someone's calling me. Oh, I'll call you back. I was thinking about how these ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, I think that they function less like the traditional understanding of ghosts, you know, like Bob Marley's ghost, and more like they represent a zeitgeist. And for those of you who are familiar with the word zeitgeist, I think a lot of people probably became familiar with it because I think there's like a really popular documentary with the same title. But if you don't know what this word zeitgeist means, it means in German, spirit of the times. And it's a term, I'm not sure exactly where the foundation is, but it became popularized by Hegel, who some of you know is a famous 18th/19th century German philosopher, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. And his most famous work ever is this text, The Phenomenology of Spirit, published in 1807, and which I am referencing with this title that I have titled this upload, The Phenomenology of Christmas Spirit. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I actually have not read the work in full. I've read it here and there, and actually, those of you who are interested, please join our speed reading series, because the next thing we'll be reading is an excerpt from this text, The Phenomenology of Spirit. And we don't read books. We were originally called Book Club, but I changed the title to Speed Reading because I wanted to emphasize the fact that we don't read books. We read PDFs that I provide, so there's no need to spend any money or anything. Each text is standalone by a different philosopher. We've done like 8 already or 9. And they're under 25 pages, and you have 2 weeks to do it. So it's basically the easiest thing ever. So if you're interested, please join that via the link in the description, because we will be reading this text, The Phenomenology of Spirit, an excerpt of it anyway. And I have not read this text, but I have read Hegel's History of Philosophy, which actually isn't really a text. It's more of like a manuscript that was compiled from lectures that he gave over a certain time period. And though obviously he doesn't go into as much detail about all these the phenomenological processes of history and culture and all this, he does talk a lot in that work about this kind of idea about how concepts kind of become externalized through society with our relationships with other people and our relationships to our material surroundings. and how the context of really everything in our lives and our interactions with each other and ourselves are always externalizing concepts that essentially become reinforced through our repeated interactions with them, and through this process that is multi-tiered, gain all these different sorts of characteristics, which then changes the way we interface with them, and yada fucking yada. And he has a lot of ideas about things like the spirit of the times, the zeitgeist, and he has like a whole hierarchy of how he classifies this kind of thing. Because yeah, there's so many layers. It's so deep. It's so vibes.
Happy Christmas! Happy Christmas! Christmas!
Hey, wait. I lost my sound.
A new bicycle.
So basically, let's talk about this idea, the spirit of the times, especially as it relates to Christmas, you know, because this is our Christmas episode. First of all, what is a spirit? Let's look it up, because that's what we fucking do here. We look up words and we talk about them. But first, actually, let's look up ghosts, because as I've just said, clearly in Charles Dickens' work, A Christmas Carol, there is something distinctly different about Bob Marley's ghost. I don't know if his name's really Bob Marley, by the way. And these other ghosts that show up right after. Let's talk about it. So, what's a ghost? And we're going to use Merriam-Webster because that's what we do. She's the best dictionary, as far as I know. Ghost. Are you ready? Ooh, this is poetic. I wouldn't expect this from Merriam. The first definition that Merriam gives us. Ghost. The seat of life or intelligence. Soul. Wow. Merriam's usually not so lofty and poetic with her definitions. I'm surprised. The second one, I think, is a little more neutral. A disembodied soul. So, I mean, this is exactly what we'd expect, right, from the definition of a ghost. And if you want to know my thoughts about ghosts and you haven't listened to the upload titled, Where the Fuck Are All the Dinosaur Ghosts? I implore you to do so, because there I give my comprehensive theory of ghosts and what I think about them. But that's pretty standard. A ghost is this disembodied kind of consciousness, a soul. It's kind of a mythical character, you could kind of say. I mean, you know, ghosts are popularized by culture and folklore and all this. We all know what a fucking ghost is, right? And spirit is used often interchangeably with ghost, but I think it's undeniable that spirit clearly takes on different kinds of definitions. It's used in all types of different ways. So let's ask Merriam. Let's see what it says here. Ghosts. A noun. I mean spirit. Spirit. A noun. An animating or vital... God damn it! The spirit just knocked my mouse over! Spirit. An animating or vital principle held to give life to physical organisms. Ooh, mysterious. I love it. Definition number 2. A supernatural being or essence, such as the Holy Spirit. Okay. Now we're getting more to the definitions that might help us out here when we're talking about Christmas spirit. You ready? Number 3. Temper or disposition of mind or outlook, especially when vigorous or animated, aka in high spirits. Not aka, but that's the little example they give. Okay. Wow, there's so many definitions. I'm just going to keep reading. Number 4. The immaterial, intelligent, or sentient part of a person. See, you're getting poetic again. That's kind of crazy. the immaterial, intelligent, or sentient part of a person. Well, this is really interesting, because hold on, let me read the next one and then we'll think about that. This is what I think is probably most aligns with what we're looking for when talking about things like the zeitgeist and the Christmas spirit. Number 6. A special attitude or frame of mind. And B, this is our winner, I think, the feeling, quality, or disposition characterizing something. I feel like this definition obviously works the best when we're talking about things like the spirit of the times or the spirit of Christmas, Basically, the character of the phenomena of this time that we're in, But it's interesting to think about the definition that I read just before, the immaterial, intelligent, or sentient part of a person. Now, obviously, if we're using spirit in this context where we're talking about the character of something, it's not necessary that that there's some intelligence of a person included in this idea. But when you think about it, how does this kind of thing work? Like, how does a thing take on characteristics, How do we as individuals interface with such a thing? Because it seems like the word spirit, when we're talking about the character or quality of a thing, can almost be used synonymously with a word like aesthetic, What do you guys think? Like, the spirit of Christmas, is that the aesthetic of Christmas? Or do you think it's something else? Is it, clearly aesthetics have something to do with this, right? Christmas does have a strong aesthetic, and I feel like the way that we interact with it helps reinforce this spirit of Christmas. But is it merely aesthetic or something else? What do we think? When we use the word spirit to talk about character, is that what we're talking about? I think to think about this definition, the immaterial, intelligent part of a person, obviously that's not necessary every time we use this word spirit. But thinking about that right there, it's like, wow, isn't this very much a part of how aesthetics works? Or the concept of having a spirit of something like Christmas? It's not simply that Christmas presents in such a way that we just respond directly to this aesthetic of fucking sleigh bells and Santa and all this shit, but there's also a knowledge there, an intelligence, a body of intelligence that we have to access in a way to experience the spirit of Christmas the way everybody else does, right? What would it be like if you were exposed to Christmas having no prior knowledge of Christmas or what it is, How would it feel? I think you might feel a way that could be somewhat similar to how the rest of us do, maybe in some aspects. For one, I think the spirit of Christmas has much to do with things like snow, So to show somebody who had no prior knowledge of Christmas, the spirit of Christmas, maybe they could relate to some ideas like the cold and shit and lights, how lights look nice and stuff. But there's a knowledge implicit here that I feel like we access, but we access it independently. How do I know that my spirit of Christmas is your spirit of Christmas? Can I know? William says, I think it's probably more like the energy expressed as an energy of the spirit. Jenny says, what you are referring to is known as the spectacle in critical theory. What do you mean by that, Jenny? Because is this like a specific thing? Because like I'm familiar with some critical theory and also the use of the concept of the spectacle in critical theory. But like how specific does this term get? Because I stumbled upon a Twitter thread actually yesterday when people were fighting about critical theory, and I couldn't tell like what exactly they were fighting about. It seemed like half of them were referencing this like very specific concept of critical theory that has much to do with like the Frankfurt School and Marxism and shit. But it was a very dissonant experience because I usually don't talk about critical theory in such specific terms. So does the spectacle have a very specific definition? Phil says, in Japan, it's traditional at Christmas to buy KFC, as in specifically KFC. Really? How did that tradition arise? Phil also said, that's the amazing thing about concepts themselves. I think the aesthetic is super intertwined. Without the aesthetic, the spirit wouldn't be there. I think it's sociological even. The fact that it's a celebration in itself. People going home for family and that. Yeah, totally. I think that there is undeniably an aesthetic of Christmas, you know. But that aesthetic is not necessarily clearly defined, you know. This aesthetic, this spirit of Christmas is ever changing, right? Because for one, I mean, Christmas is a cultural phenomenon, and as it exists in the context of specific cultures, depending on what that culture is going through at the time, you know, the spirit of Christmas may be greatly altered. Like, to talk about our current zeitgeist, the spirit of our times, I feel like a lot of people feel sort of critically of Christmas because, you know, especially as we go on and become more critical of capitalism, which seems to be a growing attitude where more and more people are discontent with this capitalistic hellscape we have found ourselves in. You know, people relate this criticism a lot to Christmas because, you know, for one, Christmas just like takes over more and more of the year every year. Like it used to be that, you know, Christmas decorations came out 2 weeks after Thanksgiving or something. Maybe not 2 weeks, a week maybe. And then it became right after Thanksgiving. Then recently it's become like even more pushed back. Like I remember when they fucking put out Halloween decorations this year, they started to put out a few Christmas items. Like, bitch, really? It's all about fucking selling this bullshit, you know? And like retailers, I'm sure Christmas is like the top fucking selling holiday for most major retailers. This is their fucking money-making season. So I think that has greatly influenced the spirit of Christmas, you know? Also, the trend of just like critiquing a lot of Western culture in general, you know, becoming critical of institutions like Christianity more than ever. A lot of us relate Christmas to Christian bullshit, you know, the nativity scene. It's about baby Jesus. And also, I believe that the roots of Christmas are originally you know, some sort of pagan, but as we all know, Christians fucking destroyed all the European pagan shit and took some of it and transformed it and put their Jesus bullshit in it. You know, fun fact, actually, you ready for this fun fact? You can throw it at anybody who becomes super critical of the fact that we become more accustomed to saying things like Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. You know, these people who freak out and are like, put Jesus back in Christmas. Like, it's fucked up that we can't just say Merry Christmas because you might be offended. Blah, blah, blah. Did you know that when the Pilgrims first came here from England, these fucking Protestants, they banned Christmas. It was illegal to celebrate Christmas because they said that Christmas was basically idolatrous and it was a vain holiday that, the Catholics had created and enforced, and they wanted nothing to do with it. You would be literally legally penalized if you celebrated Christmas as a pilgrim in America. So, Christmas is un-American. You heard it here first, folks. Christmas is un-American. Fuck it. Sorry, I was just swallowing more drugs. But yeah, it's really interesting thinking about how the aesthetics of things, first of all, are so transformative. And I spoke about this in an upload here once. Aesthetic, would it be like? This idea that, like, the way we interact with aesthetic is really so fucking not clearly defined, Because the reality is the only way that we actually interface with aesthetic is, for one, in our current context, which are always changing. But then on top of that, it's like we only interface with aesthetic from this individual perspective, Like, I think that there is a spirit of Christmas that you can all relate to and we can all relate to together. But I also know that my impression of the spirit of Christmas is probably entirely unique to myself. Well, it is unique to myself. Your spirit of Christmas is not my spirit of Christmas, And I think that there's probably commonality in how we all experience the spirit of Christmas, but it's very interesting to think about, especially as artists. And Hegel in particular had a lot to say about art and aesthetic. And I'd be lying to you if I said I felt comfortable sharing some of those ideas. But it's crazy. It's crazy. Actually, I found an old paper that I wrote about Hegel where I was like mad. I was so mad because, let me try to remember it. But basically, we had to read some of history of philosophy in class. And Hegel makes this argument that I'm not sure if I understood correctly, but I perceived at the time he was basically saying that people who critique the form of art more than the content are pretentious, he called them. And he called them pretentious because he says that the content of art is the materiality of it. That really, when it comes to art, it's the content that matters. And he likens art to philosophy, saying that, the same thing is true. It's not about the written form of philosophy. It's about the content. That is ultimately the art, not the form itself of the art. Not the format, but the content is its, ideas. But I disagree very much with that idea because, I think that art and philosophy are fundamentally different in that way. Not fundamentally different, but it's like philosophy has no implicit materiality. I think that the ideas of philosophy are much more important than the ideas presented with art. Because, with a thing like a painting, like the content is partially, the content is partially the ideas, but ultimately I think more than that, it's about its actual materiality, its physical materiality. And the same's not really true for philosophy, though it is true because in some ways, because philosophy also has a very distinguishable form, I think of writers like Nietzsche. Nietzsche is somebody who I think the form almost becomes the content, If Nietzsche just laid out his ideas in some, like, totally different, mundane style, I don't think he would be nearly as renowned. The strength of Nietzsche's ideas are really kind of only found in the form. This is I'm, like, really stressed out right now. I don't know why. This Christmas of Spirit thing has got me like stressed. I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. Okay, I have an idea. Let's try to do this together. What is the form of Christmas and what is the content? Is the content fuck? Is the content shit? The content is the Christmas spirit and the form is the Christmas? Guys, what's the form of Christmas and what's the content? Tell me. Jenny asked me, what is your opinion on Hegel's dialectical idea of absolute idealism versus Marx's inverse idea of dialectical materialism, the idea of the struggle of opposites within nature and human development? Well, like I said, I haven't read the full Phenomenology of Spirit text, so I don't think that any answer I give you right now will be the same answer I give you when I finish reading it in full, which I definitely plan on doing. But I do think it's interesting how, as far as I know, I mean, Hegel's theory of dialectical, or Hegel's dialectic rather, I mean it's describing a very conceptual process, right? Like out of every thesis emerges its antithesis. So like, you know, if we're talking about concepts, the apple is red. As soon as I say this statement, an antithesis emerges that perhaps the apple is not red, you know? And then there's this process of like, I don't know, coming to reinforce this, whatever, and then we return to the fucking nothing. I don't know. Hold on. What's the step after the antithesis emerges? Aren't we always in a state of becoming like the original thesis or some bullshit? See, this is difficult. I'm looking at the charts of Hegel's dialectic. They're really fun and great. What is it? We're always in a process of becoming the thing that we started out as, right? Some bullshit. And that's what working through the antithesis is. Basically, everything is vibes. Phil asks, is the date itself part of the form? We're talking about Christmas. I mean, yeah, right? It's part of it. I would say that the form of Christmas is a cultural celebration that happens on a specific date, right? And probably also included in the form of Christmas is which cultures celebrate it and to what extent. And then the content, I guess, would be all the aesthetic variables. Things like Santa Claus, you know? I mean, the aesthetic of Christmas is changing. I feel like in the past few years, we started, like, integrating more pagan imagery and stuff because it's fun and cool, like the Krampus. I remember when Krampus movie came out, like people were like, what's a Krampus? And then there was all these like Vice specials on Krampus festivals and shit, you know? Would that be the content, or is Santa part of the form? Oh fuck, this is so stressful. This is the worst upload ever. Christmas is so hard. I am not interfacing with Christmas spirit. I'm sorry. I really tried. I'm so stressed right now. I don't even know why. I'm like, can you hear how stressed I am? The tradition itself is the form. Is it though? Fuck. Does Christmas even have a fucking form? Or is Christmas only content? I would say the form of Christmas is like literally enacting it, you know? But how do you enact it? Am I enacting Christmas when I sit down with my family and eat Christmas dinner? I mean, I feel like that's the closest thing to the actual form of Christmas. If my participation, you know, and the collective participation. But I think that's also a part of the content, right? Like, why do people lose their shit over Christmas? Part of it is because we see everywhere it presents to us in our phenomena of experience that our culture fucking loves Christmas, you know? It's never like, oh, what are you doing for Christmas? I don't know. I just thought, not doing anything this year. Like, everyone does Christmas, And if you don't do Christmas, you do something else. So I feel like the participation, or maybe the extent of the participation, that's the content. Ugh. Christmas has no form, really, says Phil. It's an agreed social event where traditions are observed. I don't know. There's so much information. To go back to this idea of the spirit and whether or not it contains information. And that's how we interface with it as a spirit and an aesthetic by accessing our knowledge of it. I would say that the knowledge of what Christmas includes, that specific knowledge, perhaps that's the form. And maybe the content is the aesthetic of how this knowledge presents to us, as well as all the other variables that are harder to articulate. Fuck. What would you guys say the aesthetic of Christmas is? What's the spirit of Christmas? Ramona says, maybe the form and content are one and the same since the two are so closely tied together in this instance. I just don't know. I really don't know. Let's ask the dictionary. So when I type form versus content into Google, I'm mostly given a bunch of answers that have to do with art. And this makes sense, right? This is where this concept is most popular, Wikipedia says, in art and art criticism, form and content are considered distinct aspects of a work of art. The term form refers to the work's composition, techniques and media used, and how the elements of design are implemented. It mainly focuses on the physical aspects of the artwork, such as medium, color, value, space, etc., rather than on what it communicates. Content, on the other hand, refers to a work's subject matter, i.e., its meaning. Well, that seems to give some sort of a supporting argument to what I just put forward. That maybe what is the form of Christmas is our knowledge of the intelligence of everything that constitutes Christmas, its history, the knowledge of it being a cultural tradition that's practiced by many peoples around the globe, our knowledge of what kind of aesthetic qualities it has even, and then the content is the meaning. Maybe the content is how we feel that spirit of motherfucking Christmas.
Happy Christmas! Christmas! Happy Christmas! Christmas!
Do you have anything besides
How do you feel? The meaning of Christmas is vibes, says Ramona. I think you're right. I think you're right. And William says the vibes is the vibes. I think you're right. I think the spirit of Christmas is just the vibes, bruh. I think that's it. I have said nothing meaningful. I'm gonna wrap this up. Let's think before we go. What the fuck are these ghosts in Christmas Carol? I want to know. This is troubling me. I don't think it's gonna make sense here. Does it make sense? What's the fucking ghost of Christmas past? How does it have such a specific personification that it could present as like this fucking like individual being, huh? Or the ghost of Christmas present, it's described as like fucking what's his name? Father Nicholas? Saint Nick? Whatever the fuck. How can you be a ghost of Christmas present and be a person? How the fuck did that happen? And the ghost of Christmas future? How can you be the ghost of a time period? Not just a time period, a holiday time period. Fuck. I'm so stressed. How do you guys feel about Christmas? What's your feeling? How do you feel about Christmas? How does it make you feel? Huh? What are the vibes? Mikey says, what's up, Buttress? Even though this is almost over, I'll listen on Spotify later. Stay trippy. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you'll get anything out of it. This has probably been the most meaningless thing ever. This is my gift to you. Coal. That's the vibes of this upload. I'm putting coal in your stocking. I'm giving you nothing except a world of fucking pain and Christmas motherfucking spirit. Maybe the spirit of Christmas is completely absurd and meaningless. Maybe Christmas is only vibes. You know what's vibes? The Yule log, I think, is vibes. The Yule log video is such an interesting phenomena, don't you think? I was thinking about the Yule log earlier. Like, first of all, how long is the longest video loop of the Yule log? Because if you put that shit on TV, I mean, it plays forever. I'm pretty sure it'll play as long as you keep it on. I mean, there's like literally cable television channels dedicated to only playing the Yule log. How long is the loop, though? Huh? Does anybody know? It can't be that long. Because I feel like in watching them, the log never like really loses its shape. But that's not realistic. I mean, how many hours does a Yule log really burn? Though I guess that is kind of the purpose of it, right? It's supposed to burn for a long ass time. Jenny says, I hate Christmas. The shop is always full of food on Christmas Eve and it all goes to waste, and I just think of all the money the council spent on electricity for the decorations instead of feeding homeless. Facts. And that's really relevant, I think, when thinking about things like Christmas Carol. Because, you know, I was going through some Christmas Carol clips on YouTube. Think about Christmas Carol, and I don't know if you guys, I forget which movie exactly it is, but the ghost of Christmas present in the original story, and then also one of these films, I forget which one, there's a part where he opens up his fucking Christmas cloak and there's 2 starving children underneath his cloak. You guys remember this? This shit is bugged out. It's fucking scary. And in the original story, their names are, what is it? Because they're metaphors. What are they? Oh, ignorance and want. Those are the names of these 2 emaciated children that the ghost of Christmas past has hiding under his fucking Christmas cloak. That shit is so spooky in the movie. Yeah, but I think that's the criticism there too. It's hard to get fully into the Christmas spirit when part of the Christmas spirit includes the knowledge of our current reality. where children everywhere, on every continent, there's a sizable population of children and adults that are just starving for no fucking reason. So when thinking about this, it's easy to feel like a piece of shit, you know? Like, I'm just sitting here with my family eating this fucking food. It's like such an unnecessary amount of food. And, you know, thinking about the fucking grocery store. Why they're gonna throw all this shit out when it expires after you've just bought this ridiculous surplus of it just for fucking Christmas? Like, how much fucking waste is accumulated for this fucking holiday? And then when you think about it, you know, the Christians or whoever, they'll be like, well, that's why we have to be thankful. That's why we should be so thankful for what we have, because some people don't have that. It's like, yeah, well, maybe we should just go give them some because we have this absurd surplus of all this shit. Maybe we shouldn't just sit around being thankful. Maybe we should go fucking hand out some of this shit. And when we see other people throwing out shit, make them hand it out, bitch. Oh, I hate Christmas. If you get a chance, read Society of the Spectacle. It's so relevant to the questions you've been asking. Who wrote that again? I know that work. Society of the Spectacle. Who wrote that? Who wrote it? Oh, DeBoer. Okay, yeah. I believe we're going to read a bit of him in motherfucking book club. So, get on over that. Get in our book club, Jenny. I mean, our PDF club. Yeah, we're reading Hegel next. Alright, you know what? Christmas is stupid. Who likes Christmas? Anyone? Boop. I mean, I do like it a bit, but you know why I like it? I like the aesthetic of it, because it's an aesthetic that I've come to, you know, it's almost like art. Christmas is just kind of like art. Once a year, we get into the fucking Christmas spirit. It's an aesthetic. I appreciate the aesthetic. What would it be without the aesthetic? Nothing. I wouldn't give a fuck. Fuck Christmas. I'm gonna get out of here. Basically, in conclusion, the ghost of Christmas present has 2 kids chilling under his fucking cloak, and we need to liberate them from this reality. So, if you give a fuck about these 2 starving kids, you better fucking do something about it. And join our book club, because soon we'll be reading Hegel. Sorry for the worst upload ever. And Merry motherfucking Christmas.
Do you have anything besides
Happy Christmas! Happy Christmas!